do this now is what goes in front of your entries. It's a piece you'll write before you will do all your entries, and just, or you can do it whenever you want to do it, but it's a piece that goes in front of your entries. So it's about work experience. So you will state what work experience is. You can look up, you can Google it, what is work experience. You can get it from Wikipedia, you can get it wherever you want to get it, but make sure you reference it. It is an experience that a person gains while working in a specific field or organization. So that's what work experience is. Now that's my idea of it. You can say reference class notes, or you can Google it or find wherever you want to do it. If you do volunteer work, you can also do volunteer work and it's work experience as well. If you couldn't get, we'll say, work experience now in a work field at the moment to do with childcare or children, but you could volunteering. We'll say if the Girl Guides or the Scouts or something said, oh God, come along, like I can do 120 hours, you could use that. So it can also be volunteer work. So what work experience does, it gives a person a feel for the professional working environment. And the American equivalent of it is internship. That's what they call it in America. So placements are usually unpaid. Now, in your case, because you're all working, you'll be paid. While you're doing work experience, when you're a member of staff, you will be paid. But if you're coming in from the outside, you're usually unpaid. But some firms might cover travel and food expenses. Now, that would be entirely up to the firms. And at the end of the placement, a character reference may be provided. Now, if you want a reference at the end of your 120 hours or whatever or amount of hours you had to do, your room leader or your supervisor, whatever, can give you a character reference. During placements, students do not take on any responsibilities and always should refer any questions to their manager or teacher. Well, their manager or their room leader or someone more senior to them. When you're on work experience, you are not responsible for anything that goes on. In actual fact, in an awful lot of places, the room leader or the manager or the class teacher is responsible for you coming in. If anything happens to you while you're on work experience, they're responsible for you.
Now, Dawn, will you be sending us? Sorry, will you be sending us on the site?
I will. Did you get the YouTube thing, Kay, and did you look at it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be sending it that way as well. And I'll also send you the slides separately, but you can delete in whatever doesn't suit you. So your work experience states where you must say where your work experience took place. You don't have to give the name of the place. You can say in my place of employment. You can say in a local school. You could say in the school that I'm employed in as an SNA. You could say that you went to the local creche, anywhere, but you don't have to name it. No, and then how you plan to do the 120 hours. Are you going to do it 6 hours a day? Is it going to be divided into so many weeks and it varying from 3 hours to whatever? Now, if it was only 3 hours, you would not get it done in the required time. So normally people who only can get work experience for 3 hours somewhere actually have to find another place of employment as well. And you must say how long it will take. Now, if you're doing 6 hours a day, it will take 20 days. If you're doing 3 hours a day, it would take 40 days, but then it would be gone over the limit for handing in your assignment. So you'd have to say it took 40, I'd take 40 days, but I had to divide it over 2 places of employment, 20 in each place, or whatever it was. Now, you must write an introduction on the place where your work experience is. So you just give a very brief outline of where you're actually doing your work experience. You can say it's a preschool in an urban setting on the outskirts of a town and it is privately run, or it's you could say it's a creche that's run by committee, whatever it is and where it is. Very brief, you don't have to give it. You could say how many staff are employed and how many children are there and how many children per session. And then this is the important part, girls, because otherwise you're going to be repeating this in every single entry. Tell at the very beginning the regular day of the school, because otherwise you're going to be doing the regular day of the school in every entry. Now we'll say whatever that is, you'd write it down. We'll say an example. I'll use my own place here as an example. Now everywhere is different. Elaine and Lynn's years to be totally different. Lisa and Julie are in Clodove, so your day is different. Camilla's use is probably different. Mary be here with me, so it's different as well. But we'll say, I'll just give you an example of our routine. We'll say our routine would be kind of greeting time in the morning where we greet the children. Now you all do that, and I mean you can put it in as a thing, but it has changed. Remember about COVID now, COVID, that bloody thing, that you must bring COVID into this. COVID will come into this, to the daily routine. Now, if it is a case that you had to have people coming at different times, different hours, every 10 minutes because of COVID, say that, because you've only one entrance and sometimes it's staggered. Now, we'll say in our case here, we have half of them coming in the morning, the front door, and half of them coming in the back gate, and they go out that way. And that basically is to stop people congregating in a group outside either the back or the front. So that would be whatever your way in the morning. Now, what happens you in the morning when you're going in? If it's staggered and you find that you had to open earlier because you want the children to come in, not all come together, come in over a 15-minute period rather than everyone, you opening the door and having 5 minutes to come in. It would be the same. We'll say we're going home. They might be staggered going home. So you just talk about how your daily routine worked. What happens then after they come in? Here now, again, we're back to COVID. Every single child washes their hands. And I'm sure that happens in all your settings. We don't care if the parents come in and tell us, look, I'm after washing their hands 9 times and they've had a bath last night and a shower this morning. They're still washing their hands when they come into us here, because we know then the hands are washed. So that would have changed from before COVID, because what happened before COVID, they came in, well, obviously the first thing they'll do is take off their coats and put away their bags, but now they wash their hands before they do another thing. The washing the hands would not have happened in COVID the minute before COVID, before it came in. So then we'd have, this would be kind of greeting time, and then it's kind of wash hands, into the bathroom, hang up coats, wash hands, all that sort of thing, sort out the lunches. Then we'd have something like what we call planning time. Now, we haven't really started it properly yet, but with us it would be a case of where children would sit around in small groups and an adult, and they'd plan what they do for the day. Now, maybe some of you do it, maybe some of you don't. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do next, think of your day. Then we'd have something like work time. We'd have work time after that. That's when the children actually go out to do their bits and pieces, do their work. And one of us, or 2 of us, would work one-on-one with the children that would need one-on-one. And then another staff member or other 2 staff members would be working with the other group of children. So that'd be their work time. And you would just mention very briefly what they do during that time. And then we'd have kind of small group time then, where they're divided into small groups and they have an activity each to do. And that small group time would be led by, we'll say, an adult. And that would be it. And then they'd have in between, of course, now, again, remember with COVID, we're in and we're out most of the day. We're outside as much as we possibly can, because that's advised by the government. So, we have the outside breaks. And so you can mention all that the routine has changed because they have to spend more time outdoors. And then you have the usual things, you're washing hands again, because it's time to wash hands. And then again, you have lunch, and washing hands before lunch, washing hands after lunch, washing hands when they come, if they've been out in the garden, when they come back in. So the whole routine for the day has changed because of COVID, and you say that, and you all know how your own centre works, so you're just right about it. And you do that, and you only have to do it once. You don't mention routine then anymore, but you can say then, when you were doing an entry, when we were doing small group planting, we were making spiders, and I led the activity of making spiders with a group of children. And you can write in about your entry, and it was done during such a time. And you don't have to write any more about the routine, just what time of the day you did this particular activity. If you did something outdoors and you took them for a nature walk or something like that, you could say, look, at 11 o'clock in the morning, we decided it was outdoor time. So we said, look, we go picking leaves or something like that, whatever. So that is how it worked. Then what is your role in the daily routine? What do you do in the daily routine? If you're in SNA, you might be assigned to one child, or you might be assigned to a number of children, or you might be moving between classes. You will say that and what your role is. And then you will say the effects of COVID-19 on the daily routine. We mentioned that already up above, about all the outside time and the washing hands and the, making sure that children are unwell, are well. If they're unwell, that you're calling for parents to come and take them home. All that, the whole thing has changed because of COVID. Now, you must remember as well now, sorry, someone asked, are you all right, ladies?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, good. Right, the next slide. Oh, that's it. That was quick. So that's what you'll put to the front of it. The main thing is that you give me your routine for the full day, and after that, then it's a case of just entries. So the next thing I'm going to go now, and we are now today going to be working really on page 6 of your descriptor. And it's called work organizations. Now you did this last year with Caroline. So pull out your curriculum. Right, here we are. I'll get rid of that one. Now you can't see that it's gone, is it? I forgot to share it, I'd say. Right, okay, girls, I'll share again. Yeah, share. Yeah, okay, I'll share it again. Work organization. Right, can you see that now? You should be able to see that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, great. Now I'll just make it bigger. Now it's work organizations relevant to childcare. It says here work organizations, but I mean in work experience in this module you could have people from anywhere. We all have to be working with children, either in childcare field or as an SNA, and so it's work organizations so that are relevant to childcare now with us. Now you when I'm going through this, you will remember doing this with Caroline. So just pull out your curriculum and read through. I'm getting feedback here from my own voice, and you actually could you probably have it saved. If you have it saved, just copy and paste it. Now look, these are references. You can use these references because you need to reference. You can put it at the back of your asylum. I was going to say assignment. So it's there for you to add at the end. Okay. Now there are types of daycare. Full daycare is anything over 3.5 hours, and it also includes breakfast clubs and after school care, which is for children between the ages of 4 and 12. Now, do you remember doing this for Caroline? There's full daycare. It's a curriculum. It's in, and if you have your book on curriculum that you had last year, you'll get all the information you need on that. And what you'll do is, Julie, I don't know if you have the book and curriculum or not, but I'm sure Lisa has it, and the two of you can share the book. All right. So full daycare, you just write a bit about what full daycare is. They're the types of childcare available in the organisation, and I have it there. It's a structured care service for children for more than 3.5 hours per day, and they can take them from 3 months to 6 years. But actually, I don't suppose they take them any more than 3 months. Sure, parents take 6 and 9 months maternity leave, but they can take them at 3 months if they want to. And services can include after-school facilities, which are generally between the ages of 4 and 12, because by the age of 12 they're in 6th class and they leave then to go to secondary school. And in full day care, their sleeping arrangements, food preparation must meet certain standards set by the HSE, and of course, they must obey the childcare regulations 2006, amended in 2016. And providers also include day nurseries and creches. Sessional service that provides a planned program of up to 3.5 hours per session, either a morning or an afternoon. You can have it 3.5 hours, and most of them are 3 hours, and they cater for children between 2.5 and 6 years. But to avail of the ECC, the free school year, they have to be 2 years, 8 months by the 31st of August, and 5 years, 6 months by the 30th of June. So if if they're not 2 years and 8 months by the 31st of August, younger than that, and they want to come to school, they have to pay. Now they can get it, they can be subsidized, sorry, by the Department of Children and Youth Affairs, by the new childcare scheme. They can get a subsidy, but it depends. If a parent, we had a parent now that filled out the subsidy, and because herself and her partner were both working, and she was making inquiries about it for a child to come 2 days a week, 2 mornings a week, all she was getting from the department was $270 for the week. So she said, no, thanks, I won't bother. I'll just pay you rather than the $270. Now, the qualifications everyone must have a QQI level 5 to work in childcare now, and a QQI level 6 to be a room leader. Now, there's Montessori groups. They focus on individualized education, teaching social skills and maximizing children's development. They cater for children up to the age of 6 in an ECCE setting. Now, I mean, all preschools develop social skills and watch children's development. That's nothing unique to Montessori. It was at one stage, but not anymore. Now, there are some Montessori qualifications allow children to stay in the school until the age of 12. Now, they're far and few between, and they would be very exclusive and private, and I don't think anybody would send that. Well, they shouldn't, because the socialization for the children would be very poor because of the small numbers. Now, you've parent and toddler groups. Is a group of parents, guardians and carers and children come together to socialise. You have the Ninaras. They're nursery schools or play schools operated through the medium of Irish. Play schools, they give children an opportunity to play with other children of a similar age, learn to share and take turns, and to understand the rules of the classroom, such as listening, which is very important. And we're here now every day kind of preaching about listening to the teachers, because we're outside so much. And that, that accidents happened with 2 lads today and they banged heads. Oh, sweet God, they came out there swelling with something wicked. But we're constantly preaching about you must listen to us. So the curriculum offered in the ECCE services include, you can have Frobel, you can Steiner Waldorf, you can have High Scope, you can have Reggio Emilia, and you can have the forest schools. They can be all part of the ECCE. Now, we all know Frobel's philosophy, did it with Caroline: self-activity, creativity, social participation, family involvement and motor expression. And you'll get that in chapter 4 of the early childhood curriculum by Flood and Hardy. And it's what the book you use for your curriculum. And then Waldorf is all in chapter 5, page 67 of the book. The principles are education process, principles, environment, materials and ties, curriculum, role of the teacher, discipline, role of play and fantasy. I needed that. High Scope, page 6, chapter 6, page 81 of the book. And it covers environment, curriculum, role of the teacher, and the key development, which are called KDIs, or we call them key experiences, and discipline. The Reggio Emilia is in chapter 7 of the book, and it's page 103. Now, you'll have probably all that now done out in your assignment. So learning, I like this philosophy. Learning is enabled by human interaction and a suitable physical and cultural environment. Care must be taken with the physical environment. Centre should be large with indoor and outdoor space. Beauty should be evident in the centre with beautiful objects around like flowers, candles and mirrors. Honest to God, can you imagine having that inside in a school? The flowers wouldn't last 2 minutes. They'd burn themselves with the candles and the mirrors would be smashed. So, I mean, it's all very idealistic. But I suppose if children got used to it, I know Montessori originally, when she started working with children way back in the 1930s or something, she worked with very, very deprived children that had absolutely nothing. So they used to actually have that in their classroom, like flowers and vases and mirrors and candles and real cups and real saucers and real knives and real forks and saws and everything. I suppose a bit like the High Scope. So, and then as well, the Reggio Emilia is very much in favour of playing classical music while the children are around or working, and a communal space for meeting and interacting. Now also art is an essential part of the curriculum. Role playing is very important. Books and reading are very important. And parents are a fundamental part of children's learning. So the parents are expected to be very much involved. Documentation is very important. Now we do all that, everything. Natural materials such as buttons, stones, pieces of wood, clay, etc. All that should be available. And then there is a thing called the light box, and it should be in each centre so children can inspect items of interest. In more or less, it's a bit like a microscope, or it's a bit like what's that thing we have, Mary, that they'd be looking for insects with? I'm having a mental block. Those oh bloody hell, you know, the ones with yeah whatever, yeah, that's it. It's I swear to God, I'm having a mental block. So that would
John,
be
must
like,
we write a bit on all of them?
well, you can, when you see, you do really, you have to write a bit. You don't have to write a whole pile, but write a bit. You have it done already, I'm sure, Kay, in your curriculum. If you have it done in your curriculum and you have it on a flash drive, open your flash drive, find it, copy and paste it. That's it, you have it done. So you've it done already with Caroline. Forest schools, well, in the forest schools, the name says it all. It's in a forest. It's outdoors. Now, maybe not in a forest, but it's outdoors. And these they have to follow. They still are expected to follow the curriculum set down the Asher and Shilta, but they do it in their own way. It's very kind of lenient about how they do it, and they use whatever equipment or items they find in the outdoors and get their knowledge from working with these. You know, if it would be something like if they went and they found a big load of sticks, well, they might decide because they found a big load of sticks and someone showed an interest, we'd light a campfire, so they'd light a fire, or they might build a wigwam. Or if someone found a rope, think what would we do with a rope? We would swing it off a tree, whatever. Now there is one in Wicklow, and I don't know, there's and one in Donegal, I think. Now there is one, I think it's called the Happy Haven, or I think it's Happy Haven or something, out for a school, and it's very interesting. It's a Wicklow, and it's very interesting if you look at it to see what they do. Now it would drive me insane. I couldn't cope with it at all. And but there are two of them in the country. Now, childminders, that's another part of the childcare organisation. They care for children in the minder's own home or in the child's home. And now these are the regulations. A childminder can care for up to 5 children under 6 years of age, including their own children. Now, if they have 3 of their own children, they can under 6, they can't mount only 2 more belonging to another person. If they have 1 child of their own, they can take in 4 more. So the service is usually offered for full-time working day or for different periods during the day. Parents and childminders arrange their own terms and conditions. So that's childminders. And the advantages, now you don't really kind of maybe you pick a line or something out of this. I'm going through this and pick out what you need to pick out of it. I'm going through it because I have to go through it. It's part of what I have to tell you. The child is, you know it, but I still have to do it. The child is typically one of a small group, which should mean more one-to-one attention. You know, if you've only 2 children from the same family or something like that, you're one of your own, well, then you just have 3 children, that's it. The childminder can look after children of different ages, which replicates the family situation. Childminders often look after children for when they are very young until they go to secondary school. This allows the child to build a relationship with the childminder and provides the child with security and consistency of care. Now, your child through a childminder can be a very good substitute for home care because, you know, I mean, they'd be doing, if the childminder is making, we'll say, brown bread, they'd be making brown bread. If they're hanging out the washing, they'd be hanging out the washing, things like that. The childminder may even be located near to the family home or may work in the child or children's own home. So typically, childminders are more flexible about pick up and drop off times, because if they're working in their own home or something, no, I would imagine that they wouldn't want someone arriving an hour late. But if you're working somewhere and you want to go home at 4 o'clock or 3:45, or like we are here, like if you're waiting until 4 o'clock, that quarter of an hour can be quite long for the child that's waiting and for us as well. But childminders can be a bit more flexible. Now there's disadvantages. There may not be a backup childcare service for when the childminder is sick or is on holidays. A childminder does not need to register, so they don't, so they are unregulated and may not have any specific childcare training. Now there is a register for childminders, and any sensible childminder will register. And during the COVID payments and things like that, there was money available for childminders. They could apply and get money. They also could get grants, but they had to be registered. A childminder may pay more attention to their own children than to other children in their care. Well, that's the space. Now, au pairs. An au pair is typically a young person who is treated as a family member in exchange for certain services, such as light housework or helping to mind the children. It is a voluntary arrangement between a private household and a private individual. The object of the arrangement is to enable the au pair to experience a different culture and improve his or her foreign language skills. That's usually what au pairs are doing. They're here to improve their language. There is no specific regulatory framework, and au pairs are not required to have any specific experience of working with children. An au pair is not a professional nanny or childminder. Now, if they have a qualification, well, I suppose they are. Au pairs are not employees, and there is no contract of employment between the host family and the au pair. Now, I think any family would be very sensible to have some sort of a contract, and so would the au pair. The au pair is usually given room and board and paid a small weekly allowance. There are specialist private agencies that arrange the placement of au pairs with families. Now, also, I know we would have a lot of, no, it wouldn't be a lot, but we would have had children here who were brought to and from by an au pair. And the au pair also had to be given time off, we'll say, to go to night classes to improve their English, or to go to classes in the morning and things like that. So that would have been part of the arrangement. Now, drop-in centres. A drop-in centre offers a service for short periods during the day. These centres are often provided in shopping centres, leisure centres, community halls, accommodation facilities. The service is provided as part of a customer or client service, and children are looked after while the parent is availing of a service or attending an event. The provision is typically time limited. You might only be allowed to have drop off your child for 2 hours or an hour or whatever. School age childcare. These can include breakfast clubs and after school clubs and school holiday programs such as summer camps, etc. Some school age childcare is privately provided and is one of a number of services offered by childcare service. Depending on the service, there may also be homework supervision, planned activities, or a nutritious meal. Children aged from 4 to 12 years are catered for, and there are currently no specific regulations in relation to adult-child ratios or program delivery in an after-school service. Although I thought that had changed. Camilla, can you enlighten me in that? Is there a program that has to be followed in after-school care, or even Lisa and Julie?
No.
No, they just come in and do their homework or do whatever they want to do, is it?
They used to come in, do their homework, have their dinner, and play.
That'd be it, then go home, like. Yeah. I know, because I think they're talking about bringing something in, that there has to be some sort of a specific program.
Like, we used to do an activity with them.
Yeah. All right.
And we did used to have to keep up curriculum for them as well.
All right. Very good. Yeah.
But the activity could be as simple as ball games outside.
Right. All right. Okay. Yeah. I know. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. I know that. I know they were talking about changing it or something. I wasn't sure if they had changed it or not. That's fine. Thanks very much, girls. Thank you. So special needs assistance. SNA support children with special needs, typically in a mainstream school, but sometimes in an ECC setting or a special school. Now, when I say ECC setting, I don't mean, kind of the sessional care. It's any place that has caters for young children. The role of the SNA is to assist with the individual needs of a child who presents with a physical, intellectual, or emotional disability, or a combination of these. The SNA is appointed by the school to support a child or children in the classroom, and the allocation of SNA support may be made on a full or part-time basis. And an SNA role is a non-teaching role, but you know all that because you all have your special needs assisting done. So here are the duties. They're assigned by the principal, teacher, and sanctioned by the board of management. Their work should be supervised either by the principal or by a class teacher. So they're a non-teaching nature, preparing and tidying classrooms in which the pupil or pupils with special needs are being taught, assisting children on board and alight from school buses where necessary. Travel as escorts in school buses may be required. Special assistance as necessary for pupils with particular difficulties, and helping physically disabled pupils with typing or writing. Sorry, now 1 minute. I turned the half. 1 minute, ladies. Sorry, girls. Sorry about that. But that would have kept going. You'd have the full rendition of the song. So that would be oh, sorry, now. The duties of the SNA, they assist with clothing, feeding, tidying, general hygiene, assisting and out of school visits, walks and similar activities, assisting teachers in the supervision of pupils with special needs during assembly, recreation and dispersal periods, and accompanying individuals as small groups which may have to be withdrawn temporarily from the classroom. Now, here it is, general assistance to the class teachers under the direction of the principal with duties of a non-teaching nature. Yes, SNAs may not act as substitute or temporary teachers. Under no circumstances may they be left in sole charge of a class. If an SNA is left in sole charge, or anyone other than the teacher, I am sure insurance doesn't cover. Where an SNA has been appointed to assist a school in catering for a specific pupil's duty should be modified to support the particular needs of the pupil concerned. And the qualifications for an SNA is laid down by the Department of Education and Skills. Now, it is important to note that although the basic qualifications for an SNA award is a QQI 5, many schools require higher qualifications such as FETAC level 5 or 6. That should be QQI level 5 or 6. I've gone back to another generation that incorporates the special need modules at these levels, and that's what Lynn and that's what you've all done. You all have an SNA in your qualification, and it was taken as a module in when you were doing year 5 and year 6. Now, the one thing about it is an SNA in a preschool setting working for AIM. If you bring someone in and you bring them in and all they have is an SNA qualification, just SNA alone, they do not qualify. They have to have a level 5 with the SNA, because I didn't know that until our inspector came the last time, and it was something she told me. So social care work. Now this is another field of work, working with children after you, and you can do it after you've had a qualification, childcare qualification. Work in social care typically involves working with marginalised or disadvantaged people and communities in a caring, compassionate way. Social care work includes working with children and adolescents in residential childcare. Children or adults with learning disabilities, homeless people, people with alcohol or drug dependencies, families in the community, elderly people and asylum seekers or refugees. You can work with all those when you're with when you have a social care degree, which you can get after doing your level 6 if you want today. You could go on and do a social care degree. Typically, the qualification needed to be a social care worker is a level 7 degree in social care equivalent. No one nowadays do a level 7, really. They all do, everyone does a level 8. It's an honours degree. A level 7 is a pass degree. These degrees are offered at colleges and universities, including institutes of technology throughout Ireland. So, students who have completed a QQI award in childcare sometimes decide they would like to work in social care and apply using their QQI qualifications, or as a mature student for entry to the social care degree program. So if you wanted to do that, and after you had your level 6 and you said, you know, I'd like them to have a look at doing the social care, you'd have an awful lot of knowledge from your level 5 and your level 6 to go into that degree program. Now, as well as that, there's the voluntary sector that work with children, and these are They're funded by the Department of Children and Youth Affairs. There's Bernardo's, Childminding Ireland, Early Childhood Ireland, the Steiner Kindergarten, National Child Work Network, National Parents Council. That'll be at primary and post-primary, St. Nicholas Montessori Association. And they provide their members and parents, and they actually give support to parents and to obviously members as well by doing professional development training, information and mentoring and quality practice. So they get guidance on the DCYA National Childcare Funding Programme. So they work also in conjunction with ECC or the CCS or the TEC. Bernardo's now in particular are very good for coming into a childcare setting or a school where there might be a family might need help. You know, if there was a death of a parent or something like that in a family, or indeed if staff were traumatized or were upset or felt they couldn't cope with something that had happened in the school, Bernardo's are very good to come in, and they give their services free. Informing policy to improve quality standard in the early years sector, they give feedback to the government. So the VCOs, the Voluntary Childcare Organisation, repress the interests of and provide support services to early education and childcare service providers and parents nationwide. Well, now Early Childhood Ireland, and they'd be our organisation. The SNAs, I suppose, come under the primary school sector, but they'd be the ones we'd be looking to, and sometimes Bernardo's. Now, Pobble, they administer funding to the voluntary childcare organisations on behalf of the Department of Children and Youth Affairs, and they oversee the work and providing development support. And they undertake audits and verification visits to these organisations to ensure the investment by DCYA is appropriately accounted for, the same as they do all of us. Pobble comes into all our settings and anything that's funded by the Department of Children and Youth Affairs to make sure that we are getting what we should be getting. Well, funny enough, they'll never check that we're getting enough, or that, oh, you didn't, oh, listen, you forgot to apply for this here, and they never tell us that. They come in to make sure that the money we've got, we have earned, and that the children who are present on our rolls or on their books with us are actually in the school. They go and they check the roll books and they check attendances and things like that, and they just go through the money that we have got from them. So here's, if you could also be applied behaviour analysis tutor. Now, most ABA tutor posts exist in specialised ABA schools or preschools and ABA home programmes. These posts usually involve working with children with autism, although some posts will involve working with children and adults with a range of difficulties. The criteria that employers set down is for applicants to have a minimum qualification of a degree in psychology or a related area, an early years qualification that would satisfy the criteria for many potential employers. Now, you could get into an early year with an early years qualification, a degree, to work as an ABA tutor. In the case of home programs, many parents require tutors to have qualifications and meet the Department of Education and Science home tuition scheme requirements, which may be subject to change in the future. So a lot of parents now, you know, they hire their own tutors, they get funding for homeschooling, and some of them would, if a child was having terrible behaviour problems, they might look for an ABA tutor, but you have to have the criteria for that funding to be sanctioned. The tutor has to have certain qualifications. So if a student would like to work and become an ABA tutor, it is advised to go. Here is the information for you. I leave that for you to read in case you want to do it. And they work together with the parents, and they are available to run by organisations such as Saplings, Autism Ireland, Irish Centre for Behavioural Support and Research. And they would look as well, a lot of employers would look for previous trainer experience in ABA or special needs education. So that's only a point of information for you ladies. Right, that's the end of that. Now, any questions on that now before I move to the next slide? No. Now what you do there is, this here actually is page 6. If you go down, research work organisations relevant to the specific vocational area, I've given you them there. They'd be the ones now, the organisation. So you just list them. You'll get marks for listing them, and you just write a piece about it. You'll get marks for writing a piece about it too. So the next thing to come on here then, look, is the needs and gaps in organisation. So we're looking at the needs and gaps in what we've been talking about previously. So this is it. You can't see it again, can you? No?
No.
No. I keep forgetting to share the bloody thing. Okay, I'll share it now there. Now, you should be seeing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Needs and gaps in organisation, work experience, module 6. Okay. Now, so Catherine Zabone in 2018 went to transform the Irish childcare system from one of the most expensive in the world to the best. So it was costing, well, she claimed it was costing an awful lot of money. They want to make it the best. The success of this transformation depends on us as a society agreeing how we build the best childcare system in the world. This is what she said. Early Childhood Ireland believes that there are 3 essential interconnected pillars of a world-class childcare system. They're saying there are 3 things that makes it workable. They are quality for children, obviously, sustainability for both childcare services and their staff. Of course, we need to be paid and we need to be treated properly and we need to have good working conditions, and affordability for parents, and that parents can afford it. So they are the 3 pillars. Each of these pillars, which support the overall structure, requires significant, sustained and simultaneous investment by government and joined up thinking between the relevant government departments. So that's what's needed, you know, not the Department of Children and Youth Affairs going off on their own, who apparently from the budget yesterday forgot to talk to the minister because we didn't get one brown penny. So the average childcare service in Ireland, whether private or community, urban or rural, is operating on a break-even basis. And that is true because of the investment in childcare is so poor that whether you're private or run as a community, you're just to be about breaking even at the end of the year. And if you're breaking even, you're doing well. The professional workforce responsible for the delivery of quality early childcare education services for children are low paid and increasingly employed on a part-time 38-week basis. That now would be sessional. So, I mean, we'll say one of the gaps and needs in childcare organisation is improving pay. So the gap is the pay is low, and an awful lot of workers are what we call part-time. Do you remember we were talking about the contract, the fixed term contract? That's what that is, the 38 weeks. So they're on a part-time, which means they work 38. Well, in actual fact, you're probably paid for more because of the fact you have holiday pay thrown there, and at the end of the summer you'll probably have a week or two, you know, cleaning and tidying up and writing up reports and things. So you might end up a 42-week thing, but at the same time, then there's 10 weeks when you are not working. The early childhood education sector employs more than 25,000 people and 90% work directly with children. So it supports the introduction of minimum qualifications, level 5 for all staff working directly with children under the Childcare Regulations 2016. Now, the thing is, the qualification is there. The minimum qualification is level 5. No one can work anymore with children unless they have a level 5. The impact this requirement has in some community services, which can no longer count on the CE scheme participants in their adult-child ratios, are struggling to either afford or find staff with the necessary qualifications. Before, we'd say community services, private individuals, private businesses were not allowed to do it. We'd say community preschools that were paid wages and everything paid by the government. They could take staff on who needed only work something like 15 hours a week and things, and are availing of the community service. And now they can't do that. So a lot of the services are now struggling to pay staff. They had to up their wages to pay staff. So, I mean, another thing for that would be that another need in the community would be that more wages are made available so that the services are not struggling to pay staff. This this difficulty is but a small part of the large staffing crisis in the sector, which is linked to poor pay and conditions. Now, I got that information from the National Early Years Strategy Lead Department, the Department of Children and Youth Affairs, and you can quote that. So you have poor pay and the conditions are very poor. It comes back to pay all the time, really. So Early Childhood Ireland recognises government efforts to encourage professionalism as a quality enhancement measure by having level 6 as a room leader in the childcare setting and the higher capitation payment in the setting for a level 7 qualified room leader. They do not pay payments for not all level 7s. And if you're going studying onto your level 7 and your level 8, be very careful of where you do your studies, because we'll say Pobble, there are certain colleges that Pobble do not recognise a level 7 or level 8 qualification, so where you're employed will not get the higher capitation grant. Be careful of that. Pobble have a list of colleges. Now, there is a lot of them they do accept, and they accept colleges from abroad, but there's a few in Ireland they don't. So the Learner Fund, since its introduction in 2013, and recent bursaries for early year educators have helped workers to upskill to level 7 and 8 and on to level 9. So, I mean, we'd say as well as that, the need there now would be, and the gap there would be that level 7 really isn't sufficient at all to qualify for the higher capitation, because Pobble doesn't accept it really for most places. So there is a gap in that the qualification for level 7, the funding should be increased for 11.8 or 11.9. Increased state capitation and subsidy should be accompanied by ring fencing mechanism to improve staff pay, provide for holiday pay and non-contact time for core staff. So on top of the bursaries and on top of the funding for people to improve themselves and get on and get higher qualifications, there should also be a mechanism in place where there is pay, where the pay for staff is improved, where they're entitled to holiday pay like every other sector of the workforce, and that non-contact time for core staff, that they're paid for non-contact time. Now, we do get so much during the summer, and it's like 1.4 weeks or something, and it's at the lower capitation, and it works out about €4 an hour. I mean, you wouldn't give a child €4 going to the shop, and that's referenced. I got that there. Now, so there's a shortage of people who hold a higher degree, a level 7 or level 8. So that now there's a gap there. That's one of the gaps. There is a shortage of people who are holding level 7 or level 8. The reasons for this are multifaceted, but ultimately pertain to poor pay and conditions in the sector. And the reason people don't go on to do level 7 or level 8, really, a lot of people will say, what's the point? I'll do level 7, level 8, but my pay won't reflect the fact that I've got an honours degree, because of the fact is the person that paying them doesn't get enough money to pay them. And so that's where the need and the gap is there as well. It is essential that investment in professionalisation is to the forefront of the government's agenda. Investment in short and medium term initiatives to improve pay and conditions for the early years workforce. I mean, the government now should have a plan in place, a short and medium term plan to improve the conditions and pay of the early years workforce. So this is what they should do. Establish a new governance and leadership fund. Now there is a gap there. Because you're being asked now to identify relevant needs and gaps and things. So there is a need, because there is a gap there, to have funding be made available for governance and leadership funds to support the sector to achieve the highest standards of financial management and good governance to support managers in their leadership roles. Because when an inspector comes in, when TUSLA comes in, one of the things they're looking at is governance. Governance is the person that's running and is responsible for we said all the policies and procedures, is responsible for checking that everyone's first aid is up to date, is responsible for we'll say manual handling, who needs their manual handling done, is responsible really for how to run a successful business, but there is no training. We learn as we go along. And that is simply, but if you are going to be managing a setting, there should be some sort of funding in place and courses run in relation to governance. The sector finds itself with a serious staffing crisis, and there are concerns that problems recruiting and retaining staff will impact on the viability of their service. Those who did manage to recruit had to settle for someone with lower qualifications than they wanted. There is a very serious crisis in childcare. It's virtually impossible to get a childcare worker level 6. I get people ringing me, centres, because they know I'm doing this course, knowing, is there anybody that I know that would have a level 6? They'd be looking for a room leader. So I mean, that's very good for all of you coming out with your level 6 shortly. So COVID-19, extra staff being recruited for a variety of reasons, but there is a shortage, especially of room leaders. And I know that people would have rang me and they said, look, I'm looking for a room leader, because then they can leave the room leader. They don't have to, you know, kind of, if you have an assistant in there, this assistant, there has to be a room leader there as well. But they sometimes just have to settle for someone with a level 5 because they can't get a level 6. And now because of COVID and all the, you know, things, what's going on, you know, outside time, means that there has to be more staff. It means, as well as that, with all the cleaning that's going on, there has to be more staff. And things like, the whole thing is, even though we're told we don't have to social distance the children, we still inside the room do not have them in big crowds together. You know, we would do Play-Doh on their own at a table, even though all the tables would be in the one room and things, and they can't chat to each other, but they do Play-Doh on their own, because Play-Doh is considered to be that the virus stays in the Play-Doh for longer than, I don't know how long, but it is recommendation. If you make your own Play-Doh, you must throw it away at the end of the session. And if you make it again for the next session, you must throw it away at the end of that session. So we actually haven't made any Play-Doh at all this year. But what we have done is, I have bought loads and loads and loads of Play-Doh. And every child has their own box of Play-Doh with their own name on it. And that child, when we're doing Play-Doh, takes that Play-Doh out, and they're the only one to play with that Play-Doh. They don't mix it with anyone else's Play-Doh. They get their own equipment, and when they're finished with the equipment, then all the equipment goes into the dishwasher and it's washed. So, you know, all that takes kind of extra staffing. So for that reason, a lot of centres had recruited extra staff and trying to get staff in because there's a shortage. So if you have someone with a higher capitation, a level 8, or in some colleges their level 7s are accepted, at the moment the standard rate of capitation is €69 per child per week. So €69 for 15 hours per child per week. And if you have higher capitation, it's €80.25 per child per week. Now, the last time that it was looked at and they found that it was more viable, and that was about 2 years ago, it said that the standard rate should be €75 per child per week and €85 per child per week at the higher rate. Now, I have to tell you, ladies, I'm in operation over 30 years. And for years, I was obviously, parents were paying me fees. And before the ECCE came in, I was earning more than I'm earning now. And that is absolutely astounding. And a lot of people in my predicament would, well, I shouldn't use the predicament, in my situation are the same. We were earning more before the ECCE came in than now. And that's it, because I was still being paid more than what I'm being paid now. And that's simply it. So as well as that, commercial rates should be abolished. So I mean, I will say one of the gaps and one of the needs there now would be the higher capitation. And that should be increased. So commercial rates should be abolished for all early childhood education services, because they are educational settings. We are now classified as all childcare educational services. We have the people come in from the Department of Education and Skills, the DES, as come in to inspect us. So they come from the Department of Education. Schools do not pay rates. So if we are supposed to be providing education, we should not be paying rates. So the early childhood education services share the national curriculum. We have the same ASHTA curriculum as primary schools in the junior infants. There we share philosophy, principle and aims with the early years of the primary schools. And the Department of Education and Skills is also responsible for evaluating the quality of the ECC provision in the early year services. So the inspectors from the Department of Education and Skills come into us the same way as they do to a school. So we should be on a parity with the schools and not be paying rates. There's a need and there's a gap. Get rid of rates. Private providers are under serious financial pressure and their sustainability is further jeopardised by commercial rates, which are levied inconsistently across the private early childhood education sector. Enormous discrepancies exist in the proportion of services by county being billed for commercial rates. Now, we'll say in Macroom and here would probably pay less rates than someone in the same position in Ballincollig, or someone in Kerry might be paying less than in County Cork. I mean, or someone in Mayo might be paying obviously an awful lot less than someone in Dublin, because rates in Dublin even they don't standardise them at all. So that's another gap, another need. There is not standardisation of commercial rates. So, transforming Ireland's childcare scheme into one of the best in the world, we have to recognise that we do not receive the same start in life. Not all children have the same start in life. Now, the Affordable Childcare Scheme that was brought in by Catherine Sabone reduces the mean tested subsidy to a maximum of 15 hours of childcare per week, inclusive of time spent in school or preschool for children where one or both parents are not engaged in formal work or study. Before, if you had both parents and they weren't working and they weren't going to school, they were given access to go into daycare, full daycare. Now they are only allowed to have 15 hours per week, and I think that was the last budget. And this appears to be motivated by labour market activation. So because what the government is saying, well, if you're not going to school and you're not going working, well, I mean, why do you need to put your child into childcare and expect the state to subsidise it? And so what they're doing is they're trying to encourage people to go into the workforce. Now, this is long before COVID. Well, now this was probably 12 months ago, maybe the budget last 12 months ago. The high cost of providing childcare for under threes has led many services to limit or remove entirely childcare services for babies and toddlers. A lot of people that were taking on babies before and toddlers and things like that stopped doing it because the ratio of staff was too high. And so they stopped doing it. They found it wasn't viable. So there's another gap and another need. And so Early Childhood Ireland is adamant that the labour market activation cannot be prioritised at the expense of children's best interest or proper consideration of the many and complex reasons that keep parents, particularly women, parenting alone. Particularly women and parenting alone. What it's saying there is Early Childhood Ireland says, well, you should not be using to get people into the workforce, women into the workforce alone, and using it as a means of getting your children into childcare, because that might not be feasible at all for women to go into the workforce. It mightn't, particularly if you don't have a partner at home, and you might be in Dublin, you probably would get a fairly large subsidy, but if you're having to go out in the morning, maybe work till 6 in the evening, it might not be feasible if you're parenting alone. So distant from the labour market, such as poverty, domestic violence, homelessness, drug addiction, mental health and disability. So apart at all from the labour market alone, you have to look at people who are poverty, women in a situation of domestic violence, people who are homeless, drug addiction, mental health and disability. They would not be in a position to even go out into the labour market and things like that because of the whatever their life is at that particular time. Earlier policy in Ireland must ensure the most vulnerable and disadvantaged children and families are not penalised by disappropriate focus on parental labour market activation. So they shouldn't be punished because their parents are not working. That's where the 15 hours were coming in. So we're talking now about SNAs here and about the needs and the gaps that SNAs, and maybe Lynn and Elaine could, if I've said anything wrong here, can correct me. Continual personal development for SNAs. Ladies, are you able to do that? Are there courses and things like that put on free that you can do?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
There's a new.
And do you have to pay for them yourselves, or are they paid for?
No, the school will pay for them.
Oh, well, they're very good.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. So I mean, you can do that. That's great. So continual personal development for SNAs, that's ongoing. That's great. SNA is more involved in designing programs for the child they're assigned to. How is that happening with you girls? You know, remember we were talking about the IEPs and things like that. Do you have an input in the IEPs?
I have an input in my children, yeah.
You do. And what about you, Lynn? Do you?
No, I wouldn't really, no.
You would. Well, you
No.
see, you can say that now as well, all of you that are listening, when it comes to SNAs, that some SNAs have an input on drafting a child's IEPs and other SNAs don't. But in actual fact, all SNAs should have an input on drafting an IEP for a particular child they're working with, because they know that child very well, probably better
Right.
than the class teacher. So that's a gap there in relation to SNAs, that all SNAs should have an input in drafting IEPs for the child they're working for. And as well as that, the knowledge that SNAs has should be respected within the school, you know, as regards being invited to meetings and things like that when it comes to the children that they're working with, or be brought in, you know, when a psychologist comes to the school or whatever, outside professionals come to the school and they're discussing a particular child. You SNA should be brought in on that, because you are working with it and you have your qualification, and you'll probably know an awful lot more about special needs assisting than even we'll say the class teacher and things that you're in, because you have the courses done and you know all about it. And the so that now would be we'll say a gap and a need and things like that in the childcare setting. Now we're finished there. Anyone got any questions?